The cold metal cuffs dug into Captain Elias Kane's wrists. With every step, he could feel the pulse of his own blood against them, slow and heavy, like a drumbeat before a storm. His boots scraped over the strange, smooth floor. It wasn't stone, it wasn't metal. It felt like walking on something alive. The walls around him pulsed faintly with light, veins of blue running through black, as if the building itself had a heartbeat. 2 alien guards marched on either side of him, their insect-like bodies clicking and hissing with each movement. Their armor looked grown, not built, like the shell of some deep-sea creature. They carried long spears tipped with glowing edges that hummed faintly in the air. Elias could smell something sharp and chemical. The air stung his nose, as if it didn't want him breathing it. He didn't ask where they were taking him. He knew it wouldn't matter. When you're the last surviving member of your crew, questions stop buying you time. All that was left was to keep walking and not give them the satisfaction of seeing you stumble. The corridor seemed endless, twisting in gentle curves until his sense of direction was gone. No windows, no doors. Just the sound of alien feet clicking on the floor and the soft hum of the walls breathing. Elias tried to keep his mind sharp, but his body was beginning to betray him. Hunger gnawed at his stomach. His throat was dry, every swallow like sandpaper. His muscles ached from days, or maybe weeks, of captivity. Time didn't flow here. It just hung heavy in the air. Finally, the guard stopped before a massive door that stretched from floor to ceiling. It was shaped like the mouth of some vast predator, sharp teeth carved along its frame. Without a sound, it split open down the middle, the halves pulling away like jaws. The room beyond swallowed him in darkness. He was pushed inside, the cuffs biting deeper as he stumbled. For a moment, all he heard was his own breathing. Then, a slow, deep hum filled the air, making the ground under his feet vibrate. From the shadows, something moved. She appeared, the alien queen. Elias had heard rumors about her species during the war, but seeing her in person was nothing like the reports. Her body towered above him, yet moved with a strange grace. Her carapace shimmered with shifting colors, like oil on water, and her many eyes glowed a faint amber. Her face was sharp, inhuman, but there was something ancient and knowing in the way she studied him. Her presence was heavy, not in the way of a soldier or a weapon, but like standing in the middle of a great storm. She radiated power that didn't need to be shown. It was simply there, undeniable. The guards forced him to his knees. Elias felt the weight of the queen's gaze sweep over him, as if she could see not just his body, but every scar, every fight, every desperate choice he had made. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she stepped closer. The sound of her movement was like the rustle of 1,000 wings. Her shadow fell over him, cold and vast. She leaned forward until her many eyes were level with his face. When she spoke, her voice was not the harsh clicking of her guards, but a smooth and low tone, each word rolling like distant thunder. "The rumors are true," she whispered. Elias didn't move, didn't speak. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger, in awe. "You're the human legend." The words didn't make sense at first. He was a soldier, yes, a captain, but a legend. Legends were for dead men whose names were carved into stone. Legends were for heroes who stood on mountaintops, not for someone shackled and bleeding on the floor of an alien throne room. And yet, in the silence that followed, he felt a strange weight settle on his chest. Not fear, not pride, but the uneasy knowledge that whatever came next would change everything. The air between them felt heavier after her words. Elias could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, slow and steady. The way it got before a fight, the human legend. He didn't understand why she said it, but he could see it in her eyes. She meant it. This wasn't some mocking title, or a trick to make him speak. No, there was something almost reverent in her tone. Elias lifted his chin, trying not to show the exhaustion weighing him down. I'm no legend, he said. His voice was hoarse, but steady. The queen tilted her head slightly, the way an animal studies something new. Your modesty is predictable. It is the same in every account I have heard of your kind. She began to walk in a slow circle around him. Each step was silent, her tall form gliding like smoke. Her many eyes didn't blink, but they shifted, watching him from every angle. You humans, she said, her voice low, are strange to us. We are born with armor on our skin, with weapons in our hands, with strength in our blood. Yet for all our power, there are places we do not go. There are battles we do not fight. Her steps stopped. He felt her presence behind him now, close enough that the heat from her body reached his back. But your kind runs into the fire. Elias said nothing. He kept his eyes forward, fixed on the dark floor. I have heard stories, she continued. The siege of Tavera, where a single human held the gates against my enemies for 3 days without sleep. The frozen march, where soldiers of your world carried their wounded for 100 miles through storms that killed entire herds of beasts. Even the tale of a child, no more than 10 cycles, who carried her younger brother across a wasteland of glass after her city burned. Elias' breath caught for a moment. Those were Earth's own stories, passed down in mess halls and barracks, told by tired voices over campfires. He remembered hearing about the child. She had been from one of the first colonies destroyed in the Outer Rim Wars. How would this alien queen know about her? You think they are myths, she said, her voice soft now, almost like she was speaking to herself. But I have spoken to those who fought beside them. I have seen the scars they left on my enemies. These tales are not exaggerations. Elias finally turned his head slightly, enough to catch her reflection in the polished black wall. If you know these stories, then you also know they are not about me. Her eyes caught the dim light and gleamed. Perhaps not, but you are cut from the same cloth. I can see it. I can smell it. He almost laughed, but the sound died in his throat. There was something unsettling about the way she said it, as if she weren't talking about skill or strength, but about something deeper, something living in the marrow of his bones. The queen moved back to stand in front of him again. She leaned in close, her many eyes locking on his, as if searching for something hidden inside. My enemies speak of the human spirit, she whispered. They say it cannot be broken, that even when your bodies are crushed, something inside you burns hotter than pain, hotter than fear. I wish to see if they are right. The words sent a chill through him, not because of the threat, but because of the way she spoke them, like a priest about to witness a miracle. The guards stepped forward, their claws clicking against the floor. One of them pressed a long, jagged blade into the queen's hand. She looked at it briefly, then tossed it at Elias' feet. The sound of metal striking the floor echoed in the dark chamber. Elias stared at it for a moment, his mind calculating. If they wanted him armed, it meant there was a fight coming, a test, something they expected him to fail. He slowly knelt, the cuffs clinking as he picked up the blade. It was heavy, unevenly balanced, and dull along the edge. He looked up at the queen. She was smiling, not with her mouth, but with the faint shift in the plates of her face, the subtle glow in her eyes. Elias didn't know exactly what she planned for him, but he understood one thing very clearly. This was not going to be a conversation anymore. Elias stood there, holding the dull blade, feeling its strange weight in his hands. It was a crude weapon, more like a shard torn from some larger piece of metal than something made for battle. But the way the queen watched him told him she thought it was enough. The air in the chamber grew warmer. Somewhere above, hidden vents released a faint hiss of steam. The walls pulsed faintly, as if reacting to the queen's presence, their blue veins glowing brighter. The guard stepped back into the shadows, leaving him alone in the open floor. You think I am here to kill you? The queen said softly. But I am here to watch you. Her voice was calm, but there was something in her tone, a hunger, a curiosity, that made Elias' skin prickle. "You must understand," she continued. "Your kind confuses us. You are weak in flesh. You break easily. You die quickly. Yet, in war, you are impossible." She began to pace slowly, her many eyes never leaving him. "In my lifetime, I have seen empires fall. I have seen species far stronger than yours vanish into dust. But your kind," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "your kind survives everything." Elias gripped the blade tighter. His mind drifted back to Earth, to the stories he'd grown up with. He remembered sitting at the edge of his mother's bunk, listening to her tell him about the siege of Tovara, how a lone soldier, cut off from his unit, had held a collapsing gate against enemy waves so his people could escape. 3 days and nights he fought, until his body gave out, but by then, every civilian had gotten away. The Queen's voice pulled him back to the present. "I have heard those stories. I have heard of the Frozen March, where human soldiers carried their wounded through storms that froze the air itself. Most died along the way, but they died on their feet, still moving forward." Elias stared at her. Those weren't just war stories to him. They were pieces of his culture. The quiet pride of a people who had fought for their place among the stars. "And then there is the child," the Queen said, her voice almost a murmur now. "A girl, barely grown, who crossed a land of burning glass, carrying her younger brother. She had no food, no water, no shelter. Yet she reached the mountains, and when she collapsed at the feet of strangers, she placed him gently in their arms. Before she died." Something twisted in Elias' chest. He had heard that story too, but not from military history. That one came from his grandmother. She had whispered it to him one night when the blackout sirens had gone off, and the two of them had sat together in the dark, waiting for the bombing to stop. "How do you know these things?" he asked quietly. The Queen's eyes seemed to soften. "Because even my enemies remember them. They remember you. Not you, Elias Kane, but your kind. They tell these stories because they cannot understand you, and perhaps because they fear that if they forget, you will return to prove them true again." Elias felt the weight of her words settle over him. He wasn't that soldier at Tovara. He wasn't part of the Frozen March. He wasn't the child from the wasteland. But something in him, something deep, almost buried, recognized the connection she was speaking of. "You're talking about survival," he said. "No," she replied. "I am talking about defiance. You survive not because you hide from death, but because you look it in the eye and walk forward anyway." Her gaze turned sharper, the reverence giving way to something like challenge. "And I want to see it for myself." From the far side of the chamber, a deep growl rumbled through the air. Elias turned his head slowly. Out of the shadows, a shape began to move. Massive, hunched, and low to the ground, it crept forward on limbs as thick as tree trunks. Its eyes glowed faintly red, its breath steaming in the warm air. The Queen's voice was quiet but carried easily across the room. "This is a creature my warriors fear to face. It kills without thought, without hesitation. I will give you one chance to stop it." Elias looked at the beast, then back at the dull blade in his hand. He could feel the ache in his body, the exhaustion in his bones. But he also felt something else, a spark, small, but steady. He knew then that this was the moment she wanted to see. The moment where fear and pain should have made him step back, but didn't. The creature stepped fully into the light, and Elias finally saw its size. It stood higher than a man, even while hunched, its shoulders thick with muscle and covered in layered scales that shimmered like whetstone. Its head was narrow, ending in a mouth filled with jagged teeth, each one the length of a finger. Long claws scraped against the smooth floor, leaving thin grooves in the black surface. Its eyes locked on him, 2 burning points of red, and a low guttural snarl rolled out of its chest. Elias tightened his grip on the blade. It was a poor weapon for something this size. Against armor like that, he would need to find a weak spot. That meant getting close. Too close. The Queen's voice echoed across the chamber, calm and certain. You may live if you kill it, or you may die and prove the legends false. I will. Watch. The beast began to move, slow at first, its claws tapping against the floor in a steady rhythm. Elias felt his muscles tense, his heartbeat rising. He shifted his weight, forcing himself into a ready stance, despite the fatigue dragging at his body. Then, with a sudden roar, the creature charged. Elias dove to the side, feeling the rush of air as its claws sliced past him. He hit the floor, hard, the impact sending pain through his shoulder. The beast spun with surprising speed, swinging one massive arm toward him. He rolled, just barely avoiding the blow. The floor where he had been standing cracked under the force. Pain shot through his ribs, the old injury from his capture, now screaming in protest. He forced himself up, gripping the blade tighter. The creature lunged again, jaws snapping. Elias ducked low, slashing at its leg. The blade scraped across a joint, not deep enough to cripple, but enough to draw a thin line of dark blood. The beast roared, the sound rattling the walls. It spun again, its tail whipping toward him like a steel cable. The impact caught his side, knocking him across the floor. Elias gasped, his vision swimming. The world tilted for a moment, but he pushed himself to his knees. He could feel the Queen's eyes on him, waiting. The creature charged again. This time, Elias didn't dodge completely. He stepped in, letting the beast's claws slice his arm while he drove the blade into its side. The weapon sank in only halfway before getting stuck. The beast howled, jerking back. The blade tore free, but the wound was shallow. Elias' lungs burned. His legs felt like lead. But something deep inside him, something older than this war, older than humanity's place in the stars, kept him moving. The next time it lunged, he sidestepped at the last moment and slammed the blade into the base of its neck, just below the armor plates. The creature thrashed, claws gouging the floor, tail smashing the air, but Elias held on, driving the blade deeper. The beast roared one last time before collapsing, its massive body hitting the ground with a heavy, final thud. Elias staggered back, covered in its dark blood, breathing hard. His arm throbbed where the claws had cut deep, and his ribs screamed with every breath. But he was still standing. The chamber was silent, except for the sound of his breathing. Then, slowly, the Queen rose from her place. She stepped forward, her many eyes fixed on him. The guards in the shadows shifted, but did not move, their gaze locked on the fallen beast. Elias met her eyes, not looking away. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing weakness. Finally, the Queen spoke, her voice low and almost thoughtful. I see it now. She took another step closer, towering over him. It is not strength that makes your kind dangerous. It is not your weapons or your numbers. It is this. She gestured toward him, the blood, the wounds, the exhaustion, and the fact he still stood. You keep moving forward, even when you should fall, even when reason says you must. Elias said nothing, but a faint, tired smile pulled at the corner of his mouth, because she was right, and she hadn't seen anything yet. The silence after the beast's fall was almost as heavy as the battle itself. Elias could hear the slow drip of its blood pooling on the smooth floor. His own breathing sounded harsh in his ears, ragged and uneven. Every muscle ached. His arm burned where the claws had cut him, and each breath sent a sharp pain through his ribs. He stayed standing. That was important. Standing meant victory. Standing meant he hadn't been broken. The Queen moved toward him, her shadow stretching across the floor. Her steps were unhurried, her eyes fixed on him the entire time. The guards stayed back, watching with a strange stillness. No taunts, no movement, just quiet attention. When she finally stood before him, She studied him in silence for a long moment. Elias didn't look away. You fought, as they said you would, she said at last. Her voice was calm, but there was something else in it now, a weight that hadn't been there before. Not with the strength of the beast, not with the speed of my warriors, but with something else. Elias shifted his grip on the blade. His hand was trembling, though he tried to hide it. Survival, he said. Her many eyes narrowed slightly. No, she corrected. Defiance. She circled him again, moving slowly, her words carrying in the vast chamber. When the beast struck you, you did not retreat. You did not protect yourself. You used the wound to get closer. You fought knowing your weapon was weak, and still you pressed forward. That is not survival. That is refusal. Refusal to accept that you are already dead. Elias stayed silent, but the words sank deep. He had been in many battles before this, on shattered colonies, in the wreckage of ships drifting through space, and he had seen the same thing. Humans didn't just survive because they could hide or run. They survived because they refused to stop moving, even when they were bleeding, even when every step hurt. The queen came to stand before him again. Her gaze was intense now, almost burning. You are not the first human I have seen fight, but you are the first I have seen fight, knowing there is no escape, and still give everything. Elias almost laughed, but it came out as a short, tired breath. Wasn't much of a choice. Her head tilted slightly, as though she was studying a strange insect. There is always a choice. Most creatures choose to fall when the fight is hopeless. You did not. She gestured, and the guard stepped forward. Elias tightened his stance, ready to defend himself again, but instead of attacking, they removed the cuffs from his wrists. The metal fell away, leaving deep marks in his skin. Elias flexed his hands slowly. What now? The queen didn't answer right away. She turned and walked a few steps toward the shadows, then stopped. You were brought here as a prisoner, but what I have seen today changes that. Elias watched her carefully. Changes how she looked back at him, her expression unreadable. You are no longer my enemy. The words were strange in his ears. He wasn't sure if they meant safety or something else entirely. You may rest, she continued. Your wounds will be treated. You will have food and water when you are ready. We will speak again. She gestured once more, and the guards moved toward him, not with weapons drawn, but to guide him toward another hallway. Elias glanced at the fallen beast one last time. Its body was still, its blood slowly spreading across the floor. He had beaten it. He had passed her test. But somehow, he felt this was only the beginning. As they led him away, the queen's voice followed him, soft but clear. Do not forget this. Human, I will not. The words echoed in his mind as he walked. His body hurt, but his mind was sharp. She had seen something in him, something she had been searching for, and whatever came next, she would expect him to show it again. He didn't know yet if that was a gift or a challenge. The chamber they led him to was nothing like the dark halls or the queen's throne room. It was smaller, quieter, lit with a soft amber glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. A shallow pool of clear water rippled in one corner, and the air smelled faintly of herbs. Elias sat on a low stone bench. His arm was bound with clean fabric, his ribs wrapped tightly. Alien healers had worked without speaking, their movements precise, almost gentle. Now they were gone, leaving him alone. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, breathing slowly. His body still ached, but his mind wouldn't rest. He kept replaying the fight, the queen's words, the way she had looked at him afterward. Footsteps broke the silence. They were soft, almost weightless, but somehow he knew it was her. The queen entered without guards. She moved like a shadow across the glowing floor and stopped a few feet from him. Her presence filled the room, even in silence. You have been treated, she said. Elias nodded. Seems that way. Her eyes studied him for a moment before she spoke again. When we captured you, I expected you to be ordinary, skilled perhaps, but nothing more. I have seen many human soldiers. Brave, yes, but predictable. I thought the stories were inflated by fear. She moved closer, her voice lowering. But today I saw something I cannot ignore. Elias leaned back slightly. You keep saying that? What exactly did you see? The queen's gaze was steady, her many eyes reflecting the amber light. I saw a creature who knew he could not win and fought anyway. I saw wounds that should have slowed you, yet you used them to strike harder. I saw a man who understood that pain is not an end, but a weapon. Elias said nothing, but his jaw tightened. Do you know why my kind tells stories about yours? She asked. He shook his head. Because we do not understand you, she said. You are soft, fragile, short-lived. In our eyes, you should not have risen from your homeworld's dirt. You should have been prey. And yet you are not only still alive, but you travel among the stars, building and rebuilding no matter how often you are broken. She began to walk slowly around the room, her words echoing softly. We have fought species stronger than us. We have fought minds sharper than ours. But we have never fought a people who simply refuse to stop. Even when reason says you must. Elias finally looked up at her. So what does that make me to you? A threat? The queen stopped walking. No, she said quietly. A possibility. He frowned. For what? For change. Her eyes locked on his. My people stand on the edge of something dangerous. War is coming, not with humans, but with an enemy older than either of us. My warriors are strong, but they do not fight the way you do. They do not have that fire. You want me to teach them? Elias guessed. She inclined her head. Not just teach. Show them. They must see what I saw today. They must believe it is possible to fight beyond strength and skill, to fight because the heart refuses to yield. Elias leaned back, thinking, and what happens if I refuse? Her expression didn't change, but her voice softened even more. Then you will leave here alive, free to return to your people. You have already earned that. He blinked. Surprised? You'd let me go? Yes, she said simply. But the stars are changing. Human. You may find that your people will face the same enemy soon. If you stay, we may face it together. Elias looked down at his bandaged arm, at the faint stains of the beast's blood still on his skin. He thought of the queen's voice in the throne room, the strange respect in her tone. She wasn't asking out of pity. She was asking because she truly believed humanity had something her warriors needed. He met her gaze again. I'll think about it. The queen inclined her head once more. Do more than think. Decide. For both our sakes. And then she turned and left, her steps fading into the quiet glow of the room, leaving Elias alone with the weight of her words. Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of the stone bench, staring into the faint amber glow of the walls. The air was warm and still, but his thoughts were restless, tangled in the queen's words. A possibility. She had called him that, not a weapon, not a hero, but a possibility. It wasn't a title he understood, but the more he thought about it, the more it lodged in his mind. He thought of his crew, the ones who had died when the ship fell. He thought of the colonies he had defended, the battles that had taken pieces of him each time. He thought of the stories the queen had told, Tovara, the frozen march, the child in the wasteland. All of them had one thing in common. None of those people had fought because they were promised victory. They fought because they refused to do anything else. When the door opened in the morning, the queen stepped in herself. No guards, no healers, just her. You have decided, she said, not as a question. Elias stood slowly, his bandaged arm stiff but steady. I'll help you. Her many eyes seemed to glimmer faintly in the light. Why? Because, if what you say is true, Elias said, then this fight is coming for all of us eventually. And when it does, I'd rather face it knowing I did something before it got here. For the first time, he thought he saw the smallest change in her expression. Not a smile, but a shift, as if some hidden weight had eased. Then it begins, she said. Over the next days, Elias trained with her warriors. They were fast, strong, and disciplined, but they fought like soldiers expecting orders, not like survivors fighting for the last breath. He pushed them, made them fight with blunted weapons, forced them into uneven battles, took away their advantages so they learned to adapt. He told them about human battles, the times when soldiers had nothing but grit and stubbornness left, and still they won. At first, they didn't understand. They fought for points, for technique, for precision. But slowly, Elias began to see the change. They fought longer, they fought harder, and most importantly, when they were knocked down, they got back up. On the last day of training, the queen came to watch. Her warriors fought in the pit below, dust and sweat clinging to their armor. One was bleeding from a shallow cut, but he kept moving, pressing forward until he finally forced his opponent down. Elias glanced at the queen. She was silent, but her eyes followed every movement. When the match ended, she turned to him. They are beginning to understand. Elias nodded. It's not just about winning. It's about refusing to stop. She regarded him for a long moment. When the time comes, human, they will tell stories of this. He almost laughed. I'm not interested in being in anyone's stories. Her voice softened. You already are. A few days later, Elias stood at the gates of the alien city. His wounds had mostly healed. His pack was filled with supplies. The queen herself came to see him off. You will return to your people, she said. And when the war reaches you, remember what we have built here. He met her gaze. And you remember we don't stop. Not ever. For a moment, they simply stood there. Two leaders from different worlds, bound by an understanding deeper than language. Then Elias turned and walked out into the alien sunlight. He didn't feel like a legend. His body was still tired, his arm still ached, and the road ahead was long. But he knew now that somewhere, light years away, warriors would fight differently because of him. And maybe, in the quiet places between stars, stories would be told around alien fires. Stories of a human who fought a beast with a dull blade and kept standing, who taught warriors to rise again after falling, who carried the same fire as those before him. The names would change, the details would shift, but the heart of the story would remain the same, because legends were never about one person. They were about the spirit that refused to die.